Welcome back to the channel, and happy Halloween. Today we're looking at the Scareful story of the murder of Lisa Ann French, which forever changed how parents looked at trick-or-treating in Wisconsin. Last night I sent my kids out into the night trick-or-treating. I told them to stay together, watch out when crossing the street, and don't take candy from strangers. Oh wait, that's the entire point of trick-or-treating, is to take candy from strangers. My kids have always trick-or-treated at night, but as a kid in Wisconsin, my trick-or-treating was regulated to Sunday afternoons. We were told it was safer to stick to daylight hours, even though inevitably there would be a Green Bay Packer football game on that Sunday, which meant many doors never opened to dispense treats. As I grew up, I came to learn the reason we Wisconsin kids only ever seemed to trick-or-treat during the day and not at night during the spooky evening hours like I saw in movies and on TV shows. It's October 31st, 1971 in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, a small Wisconsin community which at the time had a population of around 35,000. Fond du Lac sits at the bottom of Lake Winnebago in northeastern Wisconsin. We can imagine little 9-year-old Lisa French woke up excited that Halloween morning, thinking about getting to put on her costume and go trick-or-treating later that night. She wanted to be a butterfly that year, but as many Midwestern kids know, you gotta dress warm on Halloween. Lisa's mom convinced her to dress up as a hobo instead and helped her daughter add masking tape to her jeans, draw freckles onto her face, and find a floppy hat to help complete the outfit. The day was probably filled with anticipation. Free candy was waiting. Little Lisa had plans to trick-or-treat with a friend, but her friend got into a bit of trouble right at the last minute and wasn't going to be able to go. That wasn't going to stop Lisa, though. She would be in her own neighborhood going to her neighbors' homes, and there'd be other trick-or-treaters out, so what could possibly happen? Lisa ate dinner and then headed out on her own for some Halloween fun. She stopped at the home of a teacher, and then next up was the house where one of the kids from her school lived. And then there was the home of a man Lisa had lived in the same duplex with. Lisa's family had lived in one half of a duplex, and Gerald Turner had lived in the other. So Lisa knew Gerald and considered him to be a friend. Gerald's house would be the last house Lisa trick-or-treated at that fateful Halloween night. She was only a half a block from home. When Lisa wasn't home by her 7 p.m. curfew, her mom probably thought to give her a few more minutes. Lisa was probably just out having so much fun that she was running a bit late, but was surely making her way home. But as the minutes ticked away, at some point, Lisa's mom began to really worry and eventually began to panic that her daughter wasn't home yet. Once Lisa was reported missing, the police, along with everyone in the neighborhood, went out searching for her. The police were out all night searching, and the next day, over 5,000 people turned out to continue to look for Lisa. There was an outpouring of concern. Thousands of missing flyers were printed and distributed. Investigators and volunteers searched neighborhoods, fields, and farmland. Police had rivers dragged. The National Guard searched using helicopters, while private pilots volunteered to use their planes to help aid in the search. Gas stations even offered free gas to anyone using their vehicle to search for Lisa. 2.5 days after Lisa disappeared, on November 3rd, 1973, a local farmer spotted a trash bag on his property located on McCabe Road in Techeetah, Wisconsin, less than 5 miles outside of Fond du Lac. Upon investigation, he found a naked and deceased Lisa Ann French. An autopsy revealed that Lisa had been so brutally assaulted that she died from shock. The entire city mourned Lisa's death. Lisa's funeral was held on November 6, 1973, and at the time there was still no one in custody for her murder. But investigators had a pretty good idea of who may have been responsible. They were able to verify that Lisa had stopped by the teacher's home and the house of her classmate, and Gerald Turner told police that Lisa had trick-or-treated at his house as well, but there were no other homes in the neighborhood that reported Lisa having come to their door. Not just that, there were no sightings of her at all that evening after her visit to Gerald's house. Police questioned Gerald, and he denied any involvement in Lisa's murder. At the time, Gerald Turner Jr. was 25 years old and working as a railroad worker. Divorced with 2 young children, Gerald had a girlfriend but was home alone when Lisa came to his door that Halloween night. It took 9 months of police repeatedly questioning him to get him to confess. When he finally did, he told police that he was highly sexually motivated that night when Lisa came to his door. He said he invited her into his house, and little trusting Lisa, who considered Gerald to be a family friend, went inside willingly. Years later, Gerald would write, "I can still see you standing in the doorway with that felt hat, beaming at having recognized me. Then I see the delight in your eyes turn to fear as I close the door behind you." Gerald took Lisa to his bedroom where he proceeded to assault her. According to him, at some point he realized she was no longer breathing. He claims to have tried to revive her, but was interrupted by his girlfriend coming home. In an attempt to hide what he'd done, he said he put socks on his hands and moved Lisa into the bathroom. He then put on a bathrobe and went out and told his girlfriend that he felt sick. His girlfriend would later testify at his trial that Gerald sat with her in the living room and that several times he headed back into the bedroom saying that he wasn't feeling well. She never went into the bedroom to check on him, and eventually she left the home to go visit her mom. It was then that Gerald took Lisa's body, put it into a garbage bag, took her clothes and belongings and put them into a second garbage bag, and then drove both a few miles outside of Fond du Lac and dumped them like garbage in some brush on the side of the road. Gerald Turner Jr. was arrested on August 8, 1974, some 9 months after he murdered Lisa. He was charged with second-degree murder, enticing a child for immoral purposes, and acts of sexual perversion. When confronted with his confession at trial, Gerald claimed that he only confessed because the police had spent months harassing him. The jury spent little time deliberating before finding him guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced him to 38 years and 6 months in prison, which to me isn't quite long enough, while noting that he impressed me as showing no remorse, no feeling of repentance. While Gerald was sent off to prison, Halloween and trick-or-treating in Wisconsin was forever changed. Many communities across the state, fearing for their children's safety, switched to trick-or-treating during daylight hours only. It took over 3 decades for the neighborhood I live in to return to nighttime trick-or-treating. Some changes were perhaps for the better, though. Unbelievably, Gerald was paroled in 1992 due to his good behavior while in prison. Perhaps it didn't occur to anyone at the time that it was easy for him to behave in prison as there were no women or girls there. He had only served 17 years and 8 months of his over 38-year-long sentence. Gerald's release sparked outrage. Activists and lawmakers set about passing a sexual predator law referred to as Turner's Law, which allowed the state to commit sexual offenders who were deemed to be a continuing threat to society to secure mental health treatment facilities once they had served their prison sentences. In 1993, Turner was sent back to prison, not for any violation of his parole, but because it had been determined that the state had miscalculated his release date. It wasn't long, though, before he was set to be released again in July of 1994. This time, though, his release was put on hold as the state moved to have him committed to a mental institution under the new law that bore his name. It took years for the commitment proceedings to work their way through the courts. In 1998, Gerald had a trial to determine if he could be committed. The jury found that he could not. They found that he did not meet the description of a sexual predator, which makes you wonder what exactly would fit the description of a sexual predator if it's not somebody who assaulted a girl so badly that shock killed her. Gerald was once again released on parole. In July of 1998, while working at a group home in Madison, he waved a knife at a caseworker. The state sought to have his parole revoked, but a judge declined and Gerald remained free. He wasn't able to stay out of trouble, though. In 2003, perhaps a smarter judge than the previous one revoked Gerald's parole and sent him back to prison for 15 years. Probation agents had found pornographic pictures, films, and magazines at the halfway house he was living at, all of which were in violation of the terms of his release. So where is Gerald now? He's currently being held at the Sandridge Treatment Center, which is a facility for sexually violent offenders. The state is once again attempting to commit him so that he will never be released from custody, but there remains the potential that he will one day be released. All these years later, Lisa's mother just wishes she could rest assured that her daughter's killer will never be released. She spent a lifetime grieving the loss of Lisa, a little girl she describes as being wise beyond her years and as such a kind person. She likes to tell the story of the time Lisa came home from school and was concerned because another little girl at school didn't seem to have very many nice clothes, and so she asked her mother if she could go through her closet and give some of her clothes to this little girl. That's the kind of caring child Lisa was. The day after Lisa's funeral, her mom found notes Lisa had put into her Bible. One said, "Smile, God loves you." One said, "If you ask Jesus to take over, you will begin a new life." And on another, Lisa had drawn a heart around where she had written, "I love God." Lisa went to meet God far too young, and the world is worse off for it. I hope Gerald is committed once and for all so that Lisa's family can finally rest in the knowledge that her killer will never be released. Let me know what you think down below, and if you have yet to celebrate Halloween, just remember to stay safe and stay careful because there are definitely demons out there. Until next time, bye guys.